So it's a pleasure to be here with you. So I wanted to just give a little snapshot of the journey that got us here and give a super brief list of what I believe the Onondaga County Legislature is going to look like this year. I have, like Rita mentioned, my bio, been spending the last 15 years on Syracuse's north side running a nonprofit, working with resettled refugees and new Americans. And through that experience, I have been exposed to just a profound level of issues that we face as a community. And I have seen repeatedly how government can work for the people and how it cannot work for the people. And so, well, multiple times prior to being asked to run for this particular seat, I said, no, I want to stay inside Diamond. The last couple of years, I encountered just an extraordinary high level of how the government systems were not working for our people, and how incredibly important it is for us to have people in those seats and in these representation positions that elected officials are in our government, right? We're representatives of people, that their voices would be truly heard in these really important decisions, and that we would be championing that their voices actually end up at the table. So I was on a plane headed to vacation after a bit of a grueling season, and I was really excited about it when the phone rang, and they said, please $40 to put someone on the ballot. And you're the only person who can win because the Democratic line was being moved. And I was like, I'm sure that's not true. Come on, guys, we've got to be somebody else. But as I thought about it and thought about all of the people in my community, my neighbors, my friends, I woke up the next morning and said, I cannot stand by and just think somebody else will do it. I need to say yes to it. And about 3 weeks, I woke up every day going, what did I do? It was crazy. But then I started knocking on the doors and talking to my neighbors again, like I've been doing for many, many years. And every conversation, I just started to be more and more sure this is the moment, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is exactly what life and the relationships of the recruiters have been preparing me for. And if I'm not willing to step in here, it's not doing who. And hopefully, how can we build the bench to have more people join? Because we need more people coming into these spaces. So I won my election in November on a major party line, and it was really a we one. I got to win with my community and had an amazing, beautiful, diverse, and flexible our community group of people that non-joined with me and talked to people and almost simultaneously when I found out that I had won the position, found out that we had the majority, which I think there's like 2 people who don't do in our community. And so we stepped into this space not only having now this new opportunity as a legislator, but as a majority. And so quickly the conversation shifted to what does this mean and what do we do? So I'm going to fast forward through some of the most crazy wild months of my life, from the election until January 2nd when I was the chair. But in this space now that I've been entrusted with the role of chair, is looking at the body of people in the county and asking the question, how are we making sure that every single person in our county is living in a county that truly cares about them, that is looking out for their interests, of championing the needs they have, that is seeking opportunities for them to be able to have jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And that it needs to, in order to truly do that, I believe, practice what I call equity, giving the most to those who need the most or who stand to giving the most. So it needs to be about everyone, but if we don't start with those who need the most or who stand to gain the most, then history tells us that they get left. And so that's an extremely important piece of the puzzle. And a lot of the services and things that happen in our community when it comes to those who need the most, who stand to gain the most, are elsewhere. Right? And so I think we play a crucial role, especially as things like my pond comes in now, where housing prices are headed towards the severe housing prices, and we don't do something real quick, real fast. We need to be put in front of mind. How are we making sure not only that our people are protected from displacement and otherwise all this happens, but we make sure they have food on their tables, which not benefits, it's not, all these things that are coming out of people. But also, how do we have a long-term vision and things that are intentionally making sure that these great programs that are starting to train people up to work in the industry that's coming are actually accessible to these people that call our community home. And we're not just having a bunch of outsiders moving, but we're rising up together. And so that is an extremely important thing to me. That's what motivated me into this seat. And we'll talk about a few more things about priorities, but for this particular start, we're starting off with just accountability and transparency. Kind of hard to really know what you can do if you don't know what you're going to do. And a lot of our systems and the way they've been operating, we don't necessarily know the legislature, especially with half of us being new, what exactly the county departments are doing and knocking on doors. Most of people have no idea. And so continuing to work with our people in our county, including the law, to say, what does the county do? What do we need it to do? And how do we get there? Pretty simple and yet incredibly complex. So I will pause it there for now. I'm happy to introduce Greater Onondaga, President of the Civic Syracuse County Council. We need it's unusual that somebody named Rita, but anyway, we expect to serve the safety community at all levels. He was appointed executive director at the Spanish Action League of Onondaga County and worked with the New York State Puerto Rico Hispanic Task Force. In 2016, Onondaga was elected as a Commissioner of Education for the Syracuse City School District, and in 2019 was elected to the Syracuse County Council as the County Board at Large. He currently holds a position with Molina Healthcare and Community Relations League for New York State and serves on numerous boards of directors. Good
afternoon, everybody. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to correct these values for 1 minute. Please take a note. Because I don't work for Molina Healthcare. That was our bad. It's been around for ages, that bio, and people pick it up from, So anyway, what I do, however, I have my own consulting business. It's called cross-cultural strategy, through which I assist an non-for-profit to create opportunities where they can, instead of living on just grants, that they can generate their own income, and so they can go to work operations and stuff like that. That's right. It's nice to come to. And also we're in the process of opening a social club for seniors. Coming up, yes, it's in the work, so we will cover that another time. But what brings us here is, so to actually, give the scope. So I got to Syracuse about 25 years ago. The first person that gave me a job in Syracuse is sitting right here. So I is responsible for me being there. So the first as I came to Syracuse, I had a job at the Spanish Action League, from which, when you do that kind of work, you start assessing community needs, then finding resources to bring services, so that you can then implement things that will benefit the community underneath. And so that's how it all started for me. I do come from a political family. It's kind of in the DNA in Puerto Rico. My father was a politician for a long time. So we kind of were built into this kind of culture at the house. So that was, that's one of the things that also pushes me to think like this because I love it. I like doing it. I like how I feel and how in the community integration, being part of every single challenge and being part of the solutions as well, as we're able to think them through together as a community. As state council president, I am now charged with a little bit more than just, when you're just in council, it's more about the management of the office. So right now, I am working really hard to modernize the operation in the office. That hasn't been done in a long time. I don't even want to go there. It's scary how long it's been. So we're implementing and putting new ways, new technology, and Right now, we are the only company, I think, in all New York State that is not into social media. So we're fixing that. And then we are also trying to implement different resources and tools for the counselors to feel more comfortable and be more effective as they are into their role as we move forward. So those are things that are a priority for us right now. For instance, one of the things I could talk about, we changed the, not so much, but we changed a little the names of the communities that represent the city so that we can be at pair with the growth of the city and be able to actually manage the things as they come through our agenda so that they can be put into the agenda in a logical way that we can then address, whatever comes to us. I think that by doing that, we modernize again, the operation and being up to pair with what's happening in the mayor's office. And that's what that is about, because one of the things that is also very important as I walk into this position is to bring back a culture where we can work as a team, even though we bring two very different perspectives to the table, we're still serving something the same people. So it is one team, one Syracuse, and we need to be able to do it together. So, thank you. I walk into this role, and again, I'm learning. I didn't realize the weight that it has when I was, when you get there and then you start realizing all that it entitles. It's like, oh my God. But we're going to do it one step at a time, one day at a time. We're going to get the job done. So thank you. I'm very curious to listen to your questions. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, Civic Syracuse. Corey serves as the city's chief administrative officer, overseeing departments such as the Department of Finance and Bureau of Research. Prior to being appointed deputy mayor, she served as chief operating officer, supervising departments including public works, parks, recreation and youth programs, and the city's water department. In 2016, Corey worked in the office of the New York State Attorney General and has held positions at Cornell and Syracuse University. And just a side note, just lives about three houses down. My neighbor.
I'll make my remarks brief because one, I don't think I can be as interesting or compelling as Chair Lloyd lost or President Onondaga, but also I want to make sure I think probably my most interesting remarks will be in response to your questions. But I just wanted to thank you for having me here. I'm sorry that Mayor Owens couldn't be here. As many of you may have known, she lost her mother earlier this week, and so she's spending time with her family, making arrangements and things that I'm sure we've all unfortunately had to experience. Rita kind of asked me to address, why I work in public service, why I'm in government. I grew up in the community. I went to Nottingham High School. I went to Levy Middle School, and my family is here. My parents are not from here, but they moved here and they expected to spend a year or two, and 40 plus years later, they're still living here. And I've just been so blessed. I, have always had a healthy, interesting family life, a roof above my head. I knew where my next meal was coming from, a sense of safety. And it just always occurred to me that I really owe something back to this community for all the things given to me. And so, with the limited gifts that I've been given, I'm trying to put those to best use in ways that, might not seem entirely clear. One of the big initiatives that we worked on in the last few years was a CARDS program for sanitation for the city. I know that painfully well. And, that might seem like a really dry, bureaucratic program, but really what drove me to be part of the team that worked on that is looking at the injuries to our sanitation employees. And, you know, the data speaks for itself. The numbers have dropped tremendously in terms of the injuries. And sure, that's dollars and cents for the city of, you know, money saved and workers' comp and time lost. But, you know, I often think of the sanitation worker who, you know, might not have been able to pick up his grandchildren because of a shoulder injury, or wouldn't have been able to, you know, dance with his daughter at his wedding because he's got that knee he can only go for, you know, all those injuries that we've prevented. And so, you know, although I'm on the more bureaucratic side of things, than the elected office side of things, those are the things that drive me, that what is the gifts and talents that I have that I can try to apply just to help people and make their lives a little bit easier, whether that's a vacant lot that we get most, so someone doesn't have to shake their fist every time they walk out of their house and say, why is the city doing something about this? Or a sanitation program, or the sidewalk toll program, or the municipal sidewalk program, where, you know, summer after summer, I would get calls from people who said, I'm on a fixed income, and you guys just cited me for the sidewalk. I don't have the money to pay for it. What am I going to do? And so he said, we got to change that. Sidewalks are a public good. We should all be checking the sidewalks. So these things can't seem really dry and bureaucratic, but it's really just my attempt to give back to the community that has given me so much. So that's all I got.
I'd like to know. You know, a lot of questions submitted to the end. I don't know if we'll be able to get the questions from the crowd or from our virtual crowd. I think we'll probably think that we have one microphone, so I'll pass it on to you all, if that's okay. And I'll start with what I thought among the questions we received from COMAC was perhaps the most focused Greater Syracuse poll question. How can I be a part of the change in the next 50 days? We're an active crowd. We are glad to have whole sort of organization. So I'll turn it over and welcome your comments.
Great question. So I mentioned it earlier, we are a representative government. But a lot of times when we represent or when we vote for folks, we trust them to take care of it. So if we are engaged in the process, we might read things and campaign materials and go over it as intelligent voters, but then it stops with the ballot box. It can't stop with the ballot box. We are a representation of our community and we have a lot of work to do, right? And so there are things in our government system that are set up for representation to work. And so it's showing up at offices and setting up meetings with your elected officials is one of those ways. Another way that certainly the county is almost completely not utilized is public comment. There is a whole section in every agenda for public comment, and do you know how many times there's no one who shows up, right? And so I think things I would say is keep a focus on what it is that you particularly care about this year. There's so much to care about this year. So what do you care about this year that you want to campaign for? Figure out the channels to get connected to the information related to that, and then start showing up to those things like public comment to make sure that your voice and other people are connected to the represent argument. And so then you can participate in the change and ensure more opportunities will emerge from there. So I think that's an excellent way in terms of putting engagement to start changing the things.
I'll start by saying that all of these things that is coming to Syracuse and it's already started, it's not happening overnight. People are not happening to today. So keeping that in mind, I think that it's important that we get ready. You know, if you in this next 60 days, as the word can say, get ready with the workforce opportunities that are coming. Even if there's certification courses, and things that it doesn't have to be, you know, a 3-year or 4-year career in 60 days impossible, right? But there are things that you can start doing and start engaging in what we do in the past to be able to benefit from what we go to training seriously. I think that is important. I think that, as you were saying, getting engaged with the community, we come to see how to meetings, go to planning meetings in the community. There's always some of those that are announced in the neighborhood centers. And we need the feedback. It's not nothing without your feedback. So these are ways to get engaged in the next 50 days. Every place you go to, there's an announcement coming out really soon. And also, if you, like you were saying, find your passion. Find your passion, because if you're going to go volunteer or be part of something, that will help you engage with city planning, then it's got to be something that you really, really like. It's like a job, right? If you have to, accept a job, it's going to be something you really, really like, because to get up every single morning and go to work from 9 to 5, to do the same, to be in the same place, doing the same thing, then you need to really have a passion for it. So then, that's one thing that I always tell people, whatever is passion for you, then that's where you need to go to. So positioning, learning, is an engagement. Those are the three things you need to be thinking about for the next 60 days.
I was building off of what Oregon said, and I think this is probably preaching to the choir, but obviously if you are, I've always been a big believer that if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And so, it's important to you stay engaged and figure out, to President Santiago's point, what way is the best way for you to stay engaged? Are you a letter writer? Are you a demonstrator? Are you someone who wants to collect academic research and send it to the city and tell us what best practices are? Like, what is the way in which that you are engaged? Are you, the hell with City Hall, I'm just going to get a bucket and start picking up trash myself instead of just continuing to complain that there's litter everywhere. So, I think it's really trying to figure out, is it serving on boards? Is it coming to focus? There's a million different ways. I think it's kind of plugging in is half the battle, just figuring out what ways can I channel my interests, my talents into a way that is productive. And also, admittedly push back and give suggestions and say, hey, I'm on the city's website, I don't see X, Y, and Z. Why don't you have X, Y, and Z? Completely valid question, and maybe it's something that is in the works, maybe it's something that hasn't occurred to us, just engaging. I mean, the beauty of Syracuse is that it's big enough to have the challenges that a lot of really large cities have, but it's also small enough that, you can run into the mayor at a coffee shop and talk about why, and you can run into the chief of police. It's not impossible to get those people into a meeting. And so I think, those folks are really accessible, and I think the tools are really accessible. People are willing to engage.
We had another question that sort of conflicts with narrative. They're concerned about continuing to rise to county residents and city residents, those in the suburbs. Franklin asked on ways in which the city and county can work together to socialize culture, entertainment, and nutrition. Curious about it, in your thoughts in general on how your different branches of government, executive and legislative, or city and county, how you expect to work together? What are the challenges there? What are the opportunities there? And what your thoughts might be on that?
Well, I think that we are at the verge of change in the way that government is set up right now. So it kind of brings us to a space where we can all work together. It's all new, not for everyone. This election brought new leadership with different perspectives of what should be happening in our community. So I think that working together will not be impossible. We always need to remember that not everybody is going to come back or come to the table with the same thoughts or perspective as your own. But this is how democracy works, right? It is about listening to make sure that you never know where a good idea will come from. It could come from the school district as child talking to you one day. We have the city advisory council. You'll be so surprised the idea we get from there. And what I was saying is working together as county and city. I mean, the city is part of the county, so we already work together. It's just a matter of aligning, you know, what we think is important for our residents, so that we can then move from there.
Yeah, I think it's also, you know, as much as I have a little bit of a city chip on my shoulder, that part of the great thing about living where we live is that you can have, and, you know, a relatively dense urban environment like the city of Syracuse, and then 10 minutes away, you're at a place like Manly, and 20 minutes away, you're at a place like Lafayette or Jordan. You know, that we have this diversity of, you know, urban, suburban, rural, you know, all within our reach. And that's one of the great things about living here, you know. And so we all benefit from that, being together in that environment. And to President Paniago's point, disagreements are natural. The priorities of the city are going to be different than maybe the priorities of Jordan or, you know, some other areas outside of the city. That's naturally going to happen. That doesn't need to be where the conversation ends. And I think President Paniago's point, can we at least align on what our priorities are? We might have different solutions on how to get there, but can we at least agree on what the problems are for the region? So we at least agree on what, you know, what priorities we're working towards, you know, we're each coming to the table with a different way to get to that goal. But, you know, I've learned to appreciate and love, and because I think we take it for granted, you know, just the diversity of areas that we have within each of them.
Absolutely. So we are in a new season, and I think one of the exciting things is we believe it's really important to be connected, which is a new phenomenon, I think, in terms of the legislature and the city. I don't know. I think I might be the first chair from the city of Syracuse, at least in a really long time, which I think also, and I am the first chair. So that's when the God makes really pretty different, right? In terms of how we think, because I can't help but think city, county, city, county, city, county. Like every single comment when we do a neighborhood meeting, Marty Nave is my city buddy, and it's like, that's you, Marty. That's you, Marty. You know, so we know that we can work together, and it's important for us to work together. Mayor Ellen and I have a standing meeting every month on the calendar. We are putting a standing meeting on the month, every month on the calendar. You know, we are staying connected with priorities. We have relationships across the 60 different legislative bodies. The executives also have relationships as well that they're developing. And I think it is possible for us to treat this. It's not good ever treat the city and county as if they're words for one another, but it's, you know, it's like a family that has shared custody of a child, right? We've got a county to care for, and it's like Rita said, President Penn was said, we are a city that is in a county that is part of Onondaga County. And so in order for that to actually be true, the county needs to be a part of the county. And we need to be mindful, we are part of the city, we are part of the county, and that we interplay with each other. We are complete, it's impossible for us to be separated from each other. And we have shared custody of it, and we have different responsibilities that we have been entrusted by New York State government to govern over. There's not much crossover, right? The county has the DSS and the emergency services, we have child and human services, we have a number of the wastewater, learning a lot about wastewater. So, you know, wastewater, but the city accesses water from pipes that Aqua runs, right? And the county is who has the authorized agency with Aqua. So we have this interplay that happens all the time, where we're having to work together, not only in emergency, but on a daily basis that's happening behind the scenes. And so we need to just pull it up to the forefront to see how do we strengthen that? How do we live into our strengths? How do we help our people understand what he's done? And so that they know where to go when they have a question, and that they can navigate the system to participate in certification as well. So they're getting on the same page with each other, where our priorities are, how we can better work together. So we're set up for, I think, success and than that this year because of the one.
Thank you. I bet I'm not alone in appreciating the stability of both the evening title. Stacy as women leading in Syracuse, what barriers do you find yourself navigating that people don't always see? What is leadership taught you personally? What has helped you stay grounded and women in positions that too much designed with us people? It's just your thoughts.
Onondaga County legislator, and let me tell you, when I walked into the chair, there's a room in the legislature called the chairman's room. Let me tell you, chairman's room. There's pictures on like the walls of all the former chairs of the legislature, and they are all white men over a certain age. All. It does on the door. Actually, we actually removed it. So we're redoing all the doors, but it's read chairman. And when I was running campaigning, I was going to that room for a lot of our meetings that took place in there. And I just would look at those walls and they were doing something to me. And I was internalizing something from seeing them. And this space wasn't created for me. Right? Like this space was not really built with me in mind. This space had not had my voice at it for even very long. You know, with women who being on the culture, but let alone in leadership roles. And that's what things took us through. You know, I think any of us who are in this space, you know, whether it's because of race, whether it's because of our nationality, our background, our language, our gender, our sexual identity, you know, like there's so many different things that might cause us to feel like this is not for me. But when you step back and say, okay, but how many people like me are in the world? It comes out to 50%. And so, well, this room might have historically not been made for me to sit at. And we want to sit at, right? We need to show up. And so we need to step into these spaces ready to confront the things that come at us when we do. I'm not even 1 month in, I'm not technically 1 month in. We're still really right? And so I know it has just begun, but it's there. It's real. I can feel that I am the first woman in this world in so many subliminal ways. And so I think one of the things that I would just also ask of all of us, particularly the women in the room, because we've been women, and so do you who experience these things for other reasons in your life. That is beautiful. Because there's a lot of hope in the job of all of us. You know, people are quick to say what they're upset about, and they're quick to make it personal. And so you are just constantly in triage with that. And so I just encourage us in the community. I've been reminded of my colleagues, like, more often just say, how do you, you know, and how can I help her? Is there anything that I can do that you can imagine? Or just see it. Grab your friend who's in a position, take a look. Yeah. So, but we need to support each other. And we have a culture in this space, especially, that's more about what are you doing for me, and or are you too busy? Those are content, right? But we need to be able to really support women in these roles because it's an uphill battle no matter what, especially an uphill battle when you're able to work in any other roles are not someone who has historically been here.
And so I think, you know, so there are three of us, and I think of Sharon, you know, the most high-level job roles in government right now are being run by women. So the community is mixed, right? We're all elected officials, so that I think, you know, I think that working in a room, like you were saying, as a woman, right? So sometimes it is because I think we care about things in a different way, slightly different way that a man would care for. So it is important that we are effective is getting the point across. And sometimes that's not that easy, you know, because people are used to the status quo, how things have been done for years and years and years, and we come to change that a little bit. And so I think that right there, you know, so there's a challenge there for us as women. And nothing that we can handle, of course. I think that as women, we are very powerful, and we have a sense to address things differently too. We're not as combative, I think. I think we do things in a more, we talk a lot. we like to see people at the table to find resolutions to things rather than, you know, talk about fear. I think you're doing something. Not that I say that I'm doing that. But yeah, we just do it differently. And so I think those are things that bring to the table a lot of good, definitely. And that's why probably most likely there are women that are elected to do a good job to serve our city and our county. And here we are, we're going to try.
I think one of the challenges that remains is just always questioning if someone is, you know, rejecting your ideas, treating you a certain way. You know, and that's true for anybody. You know, but you're like, I wonder if this would be the case if, you know, if I were older, if I were a man, you know. And so I think everybody's got that to some degree with their questioning. Are you doing that because of the characteristics that I have? There's also obviously the challenge of work-life balance. You know, I had a young child, and, you know, I'm not complaining, but we are just better as a society that when the doctor's office calls and they have a choice of which parent to call, they generally call the mom first, you know. And I remember my husband had to take my daughter to a doctor's appointment, and I was husband. So they gave him a flyer on how to sign up for the patient portal, and when he got home, he handed it to me, and I said, well, I know you. And I think, you know, and I'm saying that too, and so I think we're just built, I don't think it's intentional, I don't think people do it on purpose, but I think we're often built from default to the mom, or summer camp, for doctor's appointments, for buying clothes, making sure it's going to some of the lessons, I sign up for some of the lessons, and I gotta make sure kids are able to that still fits, wear that with the towels, you know, there's just, you know, and it's not true in every relationship, I'm not trying to generalize. But then I also think it's interesting when people point out that, like, you know, speaking generally, wow, women are so great at collaborating and cooperating, and it's sort of like saying someone, you know, who maybe has lost the ability to use their legs and in a wheelchair and plays really great basketball, you know, to have a team. Like, wow, you're really great at doing that. Well, yeah, because we have to, you know, I mean, the person who is not able to use their legs doesn't have any other choice but to get good at that. And so it doesn't generally work for women to barge into a room and, you know, this is how it's going to be. Usually not well received, and so you have to adjust because you get good at collaborating and bring people to the table and actually cooperatively. Again, I don't mean to speak in generalizations, many men are good at that too, but you know, it's just no mystery to me why we tend to rely on those skills because we have to.
We're almost out of time. With the 2 minutes we have remaining, there's a question that you would. The topic New American is interviews, which we all see. What if we might just spend the last few minutes with your brief thoughts on the challenges and opportunities that sort of trickle around this issue as regards your various constituencies and roles within it?
So I'll just say briefly, you know, that the mayor had her State of the City yesterday, and in her opening, you know, made it clear that Syracuse Police Department will not be used for immigration enforcement. And it's, you know, I was standing in the back, freaking out about, you know, something else that was going on with the address. But, you know, I think the community pretty quickly stood up and gave standing ovation and applause because we all are just discouraged by what we're seeing. And so, you know, at least from the city standpoint, you know, Mayor Owens was very clear on that. And it's, you know, it's just very unfortunate, and it's just such a feeling of helplessness. And so again, we're trying to control the things that we can control. You know, unfortunately, we're limited in what we control, what happens outside of our community, but what can we do? Obviously, we can raise our voices together collectively to, you know, express our anger at what is happening, but what we can do is control, you know, what's within our reach and their own dignity that keeps them with us.
Yeah, I think it's also involving, so right now we have, hours, to receive our president, and we send to the challenges and thoughts, and what everyone talks about, you know, and so that's one way to learn a little bit more of what is really going on and what's happening in the different neighborhoods, because we read in the paper, generalizing, right? And sometimes we get a lot of calls to our cell phones and the office, you know, about people that need all kinds of help related to go to immigration. And a lot of people have no documentation. And while they were in processes of getting their documentation and being well, you know, with everything they need. So processes right now are having a problem. So people are scared. You know, all of those years that we worked so hard in getting people that they come to us out of the shadows, you know, that doesn't exist anymore. And it just went all the way back. Now we're back to, you know, dinosaur results with what's going on. So I think that as a council member, I am a member in this community, as a resident of this community. You know, I am always out there and reach out to the folks that need this kind of help, so we can be further to the right, you know, because that is so important. Sometimes I think that they listen to other community members that are not as well informed, and then they end up in more trouble than what than where they are at. So it's important that you know of people that are going through these kinds of challenges before you try to help in getting them where they need to go. Please be informed, because that could be more harm than help.
So clearly this is one of the most important issues to me, because I have had the privilege of sharing life with these people we're talking about for this community. So we have had me at the dinner table. They have allowed me the privilege of caring for their little babies. They have taken care of me when I got lonely. These are my friends and my neighbors. And I think the feeling of powerlessness that a lot of us have can feel really overwhelming. And I know I keep myself, well, what can the county do? That's the question I ask every single person who's an attorney or in policy. What can the county do? Because the federal government has so much power in this particular situation. My colleagues have already mentioned that we can only do what we can do, but what can we do, right? And so I'm still asking that question. And I haven't come up with any answers that really make me feel excited, because it's limited. But we are certainly committed to doing what we can. I'm asking the question every time I can of council, are we sharing records? Because that's one thing that we can do. Is we've got DSS folks, we've got, you know, folks who are in domestic violence, which you need to. We've got a number of different people with very private records. Are we keeping those records safe from the federal intrusion? And that goes to our people at risk. How is our probation office? How is our sheriff's office handling these people that are going to get arrested? Are we proactively or responsibly, working with ICE at all? And New York State is working on legislation. There's a number of things going on right now that I think will kind of then have a trickle down effect. There is still more strength and power, but in the meantime, we're so lucky to have people like Sherman in our community who I'm on way too many chats telling me of all the crazy things that are happening in our communities, and we have people who know that what actually happened. We have phone numbers to call that are connecting people to attorneys that are going and tracking people down to detention centers and making sure that they get representation. We have pretty much how we can see that is showing up in the terrible space that we are in. And so we all need to do what we can do, but one of the things that I keep on saying to my friends and my neighbors who are not at risk, those who are not going to get pulled over because they look a certain way or they speak a certain way, who aren't trying to take their garbage out to the curb and get detained if they didn't have their papers, taking their trash out to the curb. I don't know about you, I'm saying I got to go and put out the garbage, right? When those of us do that's not going to happen to us, we are actually some of the most empowered in the system. Because as citizens, we can videotape, we can talk, we can enforce, we can do these things, we can protest, we can write letters, we can do a lot of things that local governments are actually a bit more limited than what we can do usually, but we can do so much as a community. So we all need to do our part. I guess my final thought. Every single one of us needs to ask, what's the part that I can play? I'm going to make sure that I am following the law and order, protecting my employees, making sure that I understand what it is. I don't have to let people in. So what am I doing to make sure that I'm showing up as a administrator, the government, as a citizen, the business owner, to protect the people. And if we all rise up and all do our part, I absolutely believe we're going to find our way to a different one. And certainly also, because the people who are at the greatest risk are some of the most beautiful things to our community, and I want to see them here in generations to come. Well, thank you, all three of you, for the unseen person. But it's quite a lovely session. And thank you all for, we weren't sure how many people we get in the room today, given how cold it is outside and a little bit of snow and all of those things. So thank you all for being here. We have to apologize to the people who got to be down here, who are online. I know we had some audio issues and we will work on them for next time. I do apologize. I will tell you that we had over 200 people who registered for this. So it clearly was an important and something that many people were very interested in. So hopefully that message is on our to be participative and engaged. I also want to thank PDR for sponsoring this forum. We appreciated all the support that they have given us. And if you are so inclined to make a donation to Focus, Nancy has the little box there, or you can go on our website and make a donation. Anything you can provide would be greatly appreciated. Is there anything else I'm supposed to say? I think that was it. Again, thank you very much, Thank you all for being here. Thank you.